Welcome into a special episode of Tribal Council Chat. We are your typical host. My name is Bruce Heller.
My name's Brett Parnell.
And we have a special guest with us this episode doing a quick interview here. Somebody that you can find on all sorts of places. CBS Sports baseball coverage, I believe. His own podcast, Nothing Personal with David Samson. Former team president of the Miami Marlins. And we're a Survivor show, obviously, so former castaway on Survivot Cagayan, David Samson. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Happy you guys reached out and happy to give you a few minutes. It's great to meet you.
So I'll just start off with the obvious question. What were your thoughts on last night's 46 finale?
It's funny. I'm going to review it on tomorrow's Nothing Personal, but I'll give you a spoiler alert. I was incredibly disappointed with the end of the game. I thought that Charlie was going to win. I was shocked that Maria did not vote for Charlie.
Yeah.
I was absolutely blown away by that. Of course, you never know what's really happening behind the scenes. It's always different than what you see on camera during the episodes, even with the longer episodes. But that said, that ending did surprise me.
Yeah, it kind of surprised. And Brett will attest this. I've been saying for about a month now that I was thinking Kenzie was going to win, but final tribal was such a battle. It felt really back and forth. I thought Charlie was going to pull that out. I thought he explained his game really well, but I guess I'm happy my prediction for a month or so came true. But
yeah, like you say, David, that was the thing with me. I kind of saw the result coming, but was shocked that Maria didn't vote for Charlie, was shocked that Liz did vote for Charlie, all over the place.
And what's even crazier, just kind of while I had free time today, was listening to On Fire, which is Probst's podcast, and Probst asked Ben, like, if it had been a tie, who do you think you would have voted for? And Ben said he would have voted for Charlie. So Maria possibly single-handedly won the game for Kenzie, in a way.
Well, you could say that about any of the five who voted for Kenzie. We're just saying that because our view of the relationship between Maria and Charlie, but I could easily say that about Q or anybody else, any of the five people. But yeah, when you know the tiebreaker, if you're Charlie, I think you got to be disappointed. But of course, it's a game. It's been a year, and I since taping, I assume. So, life goes on. But at the same time, you're forced. It's strange when you tape the show, and then it's a long time before it airs, and it really does reopen all sorts of memories and regrets and excitement, and it really is quite interesting to see the season play back.
So another question I had is just, like I mentioned before we started, I've been listening to you on various shows and podcasts for years. I can tell you're a pretty analytical guy. There's been a lot of debate since the new era started on 26 versus 39. A lot of old school fans and old school players are of the opinion that 26 just simply can't be as hard. There's a third of the days that aren't there, and so on. And meanwhile, a lot of the new era players, and I think Probst has been on this side of the argument as well, saying it's less days, but we're not given rice, where the schedule is a lot more packed. You don't have the downtime you used to have. So where do you kind of fall on this 26 versus 39 argument?
Well, from a business standpoint, if you are the producer and you're CBS, it's a no-brainer. It is obviously less expensive. You're airing 52 days. You're basically taping 52 days versus 78 days. That's a tremendous difference each year when you're going through your budget. And obviously, shows have to be profitable. It is not inexpensive to film. That's the reason why they've kept it in Fiji, is that there's economies of scale. You set up the sets, if you will. You set up crew housing, staff housing, Ponderosa, everything, and you don't have to move from country to country or resort to resort. So all of the things they've done make sense. And the fact is, what keeps Survivor so great, 46 seasons in, and knowing that there'll be at least 50, what keeps it so great, it's really the players. It's the job they do editing. It's the challenges they come up with, it's the twists they come up with, and it's just getting an insight into people who you may not spend time with off the island, who you're forced to spend time with. And when you roll cameras, it tends to be interesting when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes perfect sense from production standpoint, and I think where I've fallen is people can argue over whether 26 can possibly be as hard all they want. Until we get someone that has played both games, we'll never truly know if the old game or the new era game is actually harder. They're just too different.
And even then, I'm not sure you'll know because every experience is different. If you get a repeat player, a returning player, they're going to be older. They're going to be in a different life position. They're going to know more about the game than they did the
True.
first time they played or the second time they played. So I don't think you'll ever get a real comparison from a player standpoint. I think it's up to the audience, and the audience has responded. The numbers are great for Survivor. They
Yeah.
did a release today that the finale was outstanding and approaching numbers they haven't had since early in 2000 when Survivor first started. So whatever
wow.
they're doing it right.
That's awesome to hear. And
Yeah, it is.
there's a lot of things people like to complain about, but the new era has been awesome. Like Kenzie, D, Jam Jam, Gabler, Marianne, Erica. Like the winners have been awesome. The cast have been awesome. The diversity initiative, I think, has brought a lot to the show also. So I'm excited to see where the new era keeps going.
I think it's a lot of credit goes to the casting department and Jeff and the producers of the show. They keep it fresh. The casting department finds characters and they put these characters together, and it makes for very, very compelling TV.
So I have one more question, then I'll turn it over to Brett because he has a couple. But obviously, we've talked a lot about current Survivor, but you were on Survivor Cagayan. Have you stayed in touch or stayed friends with very many people from your season?
Yeah, the Brains Tribe still has a text group, and
Oh, that's awesome.
we text the original Brains Tribe. I have a very close relationship with Sarah Lucina, who is a dear, dear close friend of mine, who I love very, very much. So it's we were a really good cast, and whether you were voted out first the way I was or won the game the way Tony is, Tony and I were just texting the other day. So
Oh, that's so cool.
everyone really is close, and we miss Cliff very much. Having he passed away, and we think about him a lot. But Wu and I text. I mean, we all text each other, and it's a fascinating thing when you know somebody for a very short period of time, a very long time ago, but it's such an intense experience that it just leads to a lifetime relationship, and that's one of the great benefits of being on Survivor.
That's awesome.
That's amazingly good.
So, Brett, you had a couple questions too, didn't you?
So moving in to continue a bit with Cagayan, at the Marooning, the Brains Tribe picked you to be in the leadership role. Was this something you wanted? Was this something you were like, oh, this isn't good, I'm in trouble? What was your kind of thoughts at the time?
I remember it like it was yesterday. I knew I was in trouble, and I decided to go and act with authority and act quickly, which is why I chose Garrett. And I was wearing a blazer. I was on a tribe called the Brains Tribe. I was the president of a baseball team. So there were a few factors that I think were not working in my favor. But that said, do I wish I had not been the leader? Do I wish I had not been put in that position from minute one? You haven't really seen that in seasons after season 28, where they make someone make a decision like that quickly. Usually it's a challenge or a decision where who's going to do the puzzle or something like that. And we really didn't know why we were choosing somebody. And we saw that Beauty and Braun had chosen the women, the weak, quote unquote, weak players, which is ridiculous. And so looking back, Garrett and I talk about it a lot. We still talk. And of course, I wish I hadn't done it because it started the process of me being voted out.
Well, and then the tribal where Garrett goes home, he has quite a performance at that tribal also. So he wasn't around long, but Garrett did give us some entertainment, as most
I think Survivor, if you had to rank survivors, of course I'm biased, but I think that on everybody's list, Cagayan is in the top 5 all time for all 46 seasons. And if you look at players 1 through 18, it was just a fascinating group. And I love the fact that I'm a part of a season that is that well liked.
Yeah, that and people have varying opinions, but Cagayan and Heroes versus Villains are definitely the two that I always hear near the top of people's lists. No matter
Agreed.
who their favorite players are.
When we were a brand new podcast last year, this is about our year anniversary this week, but we did our season rankings at the time, and pretty much all the feedback we got on social media had those exact two seasons as well.
That makes me smile. I was happy to be a part of something that entertained a huge audience and millions of people. And it's interesting, when I'm recognized equally for being on Survivor as I am for being in the media or, running a baseball team. It's pretty equal. And it's funny, I was only on it for half of one episode, but people seem to certainly remember that episode. And I'm happy to have entertained people.
Well, and it's half of one episode, but it's an first episode of a season that not only is such a good season, but produced so many returning players also. Tony wins twice, Sarah comes back and wins, Spencer and Tasha come back and are co-runners up, Cass comes back. Just that and Australian Outback too are just the amount of returnees those two seasons produced is awesome.
We struggled at the beginning. We didn't have fire. We lost the first challenge, and Garrett got voted out, and it was viewed as a bad tribe, just like Kenzie's tribe was viewed as a bad tribe in season 46. And guess what? She's got $1 million. Not such a bad tribe.
Nope.
And look at the Brains tribe, the original Brains tribe. There's some very well-known Survivor players out of that group of 6.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's a great bridge into my next question, Bruce, because the next thing I had on my list is that, David, you were on a season that produced 2 of 44 winners of the game. From the time that you were there, be it even though you were never on a beach with them at the marooning or at the first challenge, was there anything that stuck out to you about either Tony and Sarah, or did the cards just fall in their favor in this game and it could have happened to anyone?
It's actually a funny story for me. Tony is the greatest Survivor player of all time. He's won it twice. He's won the most money. He deserves that title. And if I were to be asked on day one who I could guarantee would not win the game, I would have voted Tony, which just shows you how funny the game is and how crazy it can be when you don't know the people you're marooned with. You're only looking at them in silence. And Sarah is someone who I knew from casting, and we traveled over to the Philippines and in silence, of course. And I was sad not to be on a tribe with her. That's something that I regret, not getting to play with her, given the relationship that we have today. We just always talked about that it would have been great just to see our games and how we could play together, but it just wasn't meant to be. But I traded being in a tribe with Sarah for a lifetime friendship. So I'd say I won that trade.
Well, 50's coming up. Probst said 50's returning players. There's still a slim shot.
Wait to see. It's there's no doubt. Were I to be asked, would I consider it? I'd be foolish to say no. I feel like my Survivor story is not finished. I'm one of only 45 people in the world who've been voted off first, and I'd love to be the first one to be voted off first and then come back and win.
Yeah.
That would be something I would very much like to do.
Real quick, before you get to your next question, Brett, because David, you talked about how close you are with both Tony and Sarah. How cool was Winners at War for you, just watching the two of them do what they did that season?
It made me smile. Of course, anytime I saw anyone from season 28 return, it made me smile. But more than that, I just love how successful they are in life and how great they are in the real world. Don't forget, Survivor is a show. It's a game. It's not the real world. It's a tiny microcosm of a tiny moment in time. And I'm really proud of the father that Tony is and the mother that Sarah is, and what they do and how they do it, the people they are. I'm much more proud of that than I am of their Survivor credentials.
For sure.
Nice. Anything you want to ask on Survivor Boost before I quickly take it to another topic?
No, nothing's on the top of my head right now.
So, David, I'm coming onto this podcast from a place called Ottawa, which is in Canada.
I know Ottawa
So
very
not
well.
nice, not being far away. I wanted to just ask you if you have, with your short time there, any fond memories of Montreal.
I love Montreal. I was
Nice.
the executive vice president of that team for 2 seasons. I lived at the Intercontinental Hotel in Montreal from December of '99, even earlier, all the way up until '02 and the end of '01, early '02. I've been back to Montreal several times. It is a city full of culture and full of interesting people. And je parle français. And aussi, j'aime Ottawa. J'aime beaucoup. I love Ottawa. I love everything about Canada. I love it from east to west. So I have no bad feelings about my time with the Expos. I'm certainly sorry how it ended. That's not something I ever wanted. It's certainly something that I thought could happen given the state of the franchise when I started.
Absolutely.
But of course, to the extent I'm associated with the downfall of the Expos, that makes me sad. I sort of was like the violin player on the Titanic, where you just sort of go down with the ship. But I love Montreal.
You mentioned '01. In the summer of '01, I, as a, what would I have been, 9-year-old at the time, was in the crowd at the Stade Olympique when Billy Bonds hit one of his home runs.
Outstanding. That is, listen, I loved my 18 years in baseball. I loved making memories for people. Really, it's the entertainment business. And I love when I'm out and about and I meet people and they tell me that they remember a game here or there. They remember making a memory somewhere and having won a World Series and given that to South Florida. I'm just so happy to have been even a small part in anybody's entertainment or memories or enjoyment.
And
Nice.
my team, and this is off the top of my head, so I might have this wrong, but my team, like I'm broadcasting from St. Louis. I'm a Cardinals fan, so you've had a bit of interaction with them between sharing a spring training facility, and I believe we played the first game in Marlins Park. If
You
I
did.
okay,
On April 4th, 2012, Rafael Furcal was the first hitter against Josh Johnson when
God,
Marlins Park opened.
I
I
forgot
love
we had
St.
for call
Louis.
for a few years.
You did. I'm coming to St. Louis to do a live show, Nothing Personal Live with David Samson. I'm doing a St. Louis show as part of my tour on June 25th. I'll be at City Winery in St. Louis. So
And I
if
will
you're
be
there, I would look forward to meet you.
and I will be looking at tickets online when we get off this call.
Fantastic. It's a
Well,
fun night.
probably later tonight. We're filming a finale recap right after this. So at some point I'll buy a ticket tonight.
Thank you. That's very generous of you.
Neat that you mentioned the Marlins as well, because that fits right into my last question. But funny enough, how you mentioned Marlins Park, I've seen a game there as well, right before I got on a cruise a couple of years ago. But I guess the last question I wanted to ask you was, if you, seeing that Bruce and I are both big fans of the game, could you share any insight on what it's like to be part of an organization during a World Series run?
It's what you dream about. It's when you take a job, whatever your job is, it's not your personal life, it's your job, it's your work, but you want to be the best at what you do. At least that's how I've always operated. And when you're in sports, it's measured in many different ways. It can be measured by attendance, it can be measured by wins and losses, it can be measured by profitability, it can be measured by how much you buy a team for and how much you sell it for. So there are many different ways. The World Series, winning the World Series is one of the great measures, though, because that's forever. That is a legacy. I used to call it part of it, it's an obituary moment. And what I mean by that is that when people die, whether your obituary is read by one person or a billion people, it doesn't matter. There are moments in one's life that are obituary moments that you'll be remembered for, both good and bad. And winning the World Series is clearly an obituary moment. And being the president of the team and watching millions of people have joy and will always have that moment of their team winning, knowing how rare it is and how their teams that never win a World Series or rarely, and their teams, the Cubs or the Red Sox, had to wait. So many people were born and died in between Red Sox World Series. People forget that since '04, it's been historic how well they've done. But prior to '04, there were a lot of people who never saw a World Series. So I never took it for granted, and I'm proud of it to this day. I think about it. I would say I think about that World Series playoff run almost every day.
Nice.
I would just like to add, as the loser of 2 of those Red Sox championships, I have not forgotten how good Boston has been since '04.
Yeah, I have a pretty long history with St. Louis. We did share spring training with them for 17 of my 18 years in baseball. And I've always loved the city. I would always go with the team to St. Louis.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
the old Busch Stadium, new Busch Stadium. And it's just, I love the people. I love the fan base. If you look back at interviews I've done, I would tell you, and I tell everybody, that the Cardinals fan base, to me, hands down, is the #1 fan base in all of baseball.
Yay. Real quick before we get out of here, both of our teams are kind of off to rough starts this season. Is there any chance either of us make the playoffs, do you think?
I think the Cardinals have a better chance than the Red Sox, and the Cardinals don't have much of a chance. And it's disappointing. I thought they'd win the division. Really disappointed with how the team has looked. And but it's early. We're only a little past the quarter pole. A lot can happen. But
Putting it together lately, at least.
listen, there's going to be good runs, and you just don't want to start off too slowly. The standings don't change as much as you think post Memorial Day. And that
Interesting.
sounds crazy, but if you go back and study it, when you look at where teams are, that's pretty much where they're going to be for the season. Of course, every year there are exceptions, and you always want your team to be the exception. But the reason they're called exceptions is that they rarely happen.
Yeah, and it's hard to do that when our offense didn't show up for a large part of the season so far. But we're on track the past few games, so hopefully that keeps up.
Hope so too.
David, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you so much.
Hey, it's great to meet you both, and I appreciate the opportunity, and have a great day, and have a good recording of your finale recap.
Thank you.
All right, take care.